Hello everyone, in this video I'm going to talk about the Meepo Hurricane. The Meepo Hurricane is an electric skateboard or e-skate that was released in fall of 2021. And I'd like to begin this video with some disclosure. I was sent the Hurricane for free to review. Meepo, of course, has no control over what I say or discuss in this video, and I imagine if it were up to them, this video probably would have come out a couple of months ago. But life gets busy, work gets busy, and so this is when it's coming out. Also, as is the case with most electric skateboard reviews that you're likely to find, the link for this product that is in the description below is an affiliate link. If you choose to follow it, then I will receive a small commission from that. It costs you nothing extra, but that is something to be aware of, and you should use that to inform yourself as you watch this and any other electric skateboard review. So, is the Meepo Hurricane actually good? Yeah, I think it is. I think it's pretty good. It performs well, support from Meepo is decent, and all of my complaints that I do have with the board don't feel so heavy when you consider the actual price of the product. If you're interested in getting an e-skate that's relatively cheap and can punch pretty hard, then the Meepo Hurricane currently has one of the best track records. It is absolutely not perfect, but if you want close to perfect, you're gonna have to spend a lot more. Like the UAV, which I also did a review on, and I will link to that for you if you're interested in what I consider to be almost a perfect electric skateboard. By the way, this is my definition of a perfect electric skateboard, and you can't really get these anymore, and I built this one, so it's not entirely relevant, but here it is anyway. The deck is carbon fiber and rigid, entirely rigid. It is stiff. It's also quite flat in the center. There is a hint of W concave, which I don't like. It's not for everyone, especially if you have flat feet. It can end up causing pain and or stress, which it does for me. And fortunately on the Hurricane, the W concave is subtle, so it's not too exaggerated and it's not profoundly painful, but I get about 15 miles before I just have to stop and take a foot brake. The flare-ups on the edges are good for control, so you can dig into them with your foot and really lean into a turn. However, the turning behavior itself is that of double kingpin trucks, which I'm not a fan of, but more on that in a minute. And so the drivetrain, starting with the trucks. The trucks are double kingpin trucks, and they are very turny, and not, in my opinion, in a good way. I'd been skating since middle school, and most of that skating life has been on longboards, and with longboards, a traditional truck is a reverse kingpin. That is my preference. A board with reverse kingpin trucks is something that I always tend to gravitate towards. It's probably why I like the UAV so much. It's why I like my first DIY board, the Boston Sportster. It's got very wide reverse kingpin trucks. Double kingpin trucks are just inherently not very stable. I realize that, of course, you can get used to them, you can practice riding on them, and then therefore you as a rider can be stable with double kingpin trucks. However, the trucks themselves are not designed for high-speed riding and high-speed or straight-line stability. And so to put double kingpin trucks on boards that go 20, 25, 30 miles per hour, I think is not a good decision. I understand why companies do that when it comes to trying to have a product that's viable for the market that will sell. You just sort of take cues from larger presences, and so with Evolve being the staple of longboard with double kingpin trucks, companies following in that path makes market sense. However, when it comes to the actual behavior and performance of a board, it's not that good. And with a properly designed set of reverse kingpin trucks or traditional kingpin trucks, you can have decent stability and still, with tuning, turn tightly enough that double kingpin trucks are no longer a needed option. The wheels are fine, the hubs are good, the tires I'm not a big fan of, the tread pattern is very odd for an electric skateboard wheel. It's cool, it has a lot of grip, but at higher speeds that tread pattern starts to vibrate on pavement, and you can really hear it, and then you can begin to feel it once you start pushing 25, 26 miles per hour. It's not my favorite feeling, and it is not my favorite tire. There are also reports of these tires causing a higher incidence of flats, and by looking inside the tire, you can see that the internal surface of the tire is not as smoothly finished as it should be, and so that might be abrading the inner tube, and that might be leading to flats. My favorite tires are the Trampa Urban Treads. I kind of put them on everything I build, if it's up to me, and they will fit on the Hurricane, and they are very expensive, but those tires are amazing. There's also a really nice tread pattern on those, and I think they're entirely worth the price. So if you have a Hurricane and you're not thrilled with the tires, I would recommend those. They're on my Proto, and like I said, I put them on everything. The bushings are meh. I would change them right out of the box. So if you have a Hurricane already, or you're likely interested in buying one, just go ahead and buy the Riptide kit. They sell a kit for double kingpin trucks, and most trucks that are on the market. Riptide is a company that makes urethane bushings for skateboard trucks, and they are probably some of the best that you could possibly get. They make a kit for the Hurricane, they make a kit for almost every board, and you should just change them right out of the box. The difference is night and day. I will do a video modifying some of the things on the Hurricane, from the battery to the trucks, and so that is for a separate video. But if you have a Hurricane and you haven't changed over the bushings yet, do that, because the stock bushings just are not it. The motors are fairly standard. They are 63/74 size. That means that the can diameter is 63 millimeters and the can length is 74 millimeters. That doesn't really mean much aside from just giving you the size of the motor can. These particular motors work, they work fine, and that's pretty much it. I say it that way because the 63/74 motor size is the most common you see in electric skateboards generally, including DIYs and some customs, and the Hurricane simply doesn't push enough, either in current or in speed, to actually warrant anything different from the motor. In fact, these motors are run relatively conservatively. For example, this is a 6389 size motor that came off of a broken LaCroix that I'm working on in the shop, and it's billed also as a 6396, but it's not. There's some weirdness with the mounting plate and an extra bearing around the side of the can. But either way, even this motor on that particular LaCroix can overheat if you push it too hard. And since that's a board where you can alter the settings, you can push this right to the limit of what it is physically able to sink in terms of heat. The Meepo doesn't come anywhere near that, and so the motor size of it isn't irrelevant entirely, but they are more than suited to anything that the Meepo Hurricane is likely to do to those motors. And so they're fine. They're constructed well enough, and there just isn't enough heat that's generated from riding for those motors to be a problem. The motors are fine. They work. Nothing really other than that to speak of. The battery is actually surprisingly good. Kind of. It's one of the more refined packs that I've seen in this price area of the electric skateboard market. It's well designed. It has a nice aluminum enclosure that it sits inside of the board. So if the board itself is in major catastrophic accident, either hit by a car or whatever, it's likely to survive perfectly fine. The cell choice is good, the design is good, it's a good battery pack. My issues with the battery are more so in the execution, meaning the actual assembly of any individual pack. It's not as consistent as I would love it to be, and so far in the shop I've repaired 2 Meepo Hurricane batteries, and it's fine. It's not a particularly difficult fix, and Meepo historically has just sent out a new battery if yours is defective or problematic. I don't love just having an old battery that's probably perfectly fine sitting around or being disposed of, and so in an upcoming video when I do some mods on the Hurricane, I'm also going to walk through what I do to both fix a broken Meepo battery for the Hurricane and kind of make it a bit more robust to sort of, you know, be in for the long haul if you're going to have this board and you want it to last more than just a couple of years. The ESC is also fairly good. It's relatively smooth, has a decent amount of punch, and operates fine for the board that it's in. I'm more used to VESC-based ESCs, and so my personal expectations of power are likely a little bit higher than the average purchaser of this level of board, meaning an import production board that uses either a Lingyi or Hobbywing ESC. Since they're not configurable, they are set from the factory a certain way, and that's pretty much what you get. However, the ESC that you do get in the Hurricane is pretty good. It's not great, it's not going to blow your socks off, but it will be absolutely serviceable. It still suffers from not necessarily an issue, but something that I don't particularly care for in these types of boards, and that is you get a lot of punch right off the line. There's a speed mode 4 in the Hurricane that has a massive initial jerk into movement, and it's wonderful for drag races, but once you get about to 15 miles per hour, a lot of that power kind of runs out. It feels like most of the current is reserved for the initial push of the remote's throttle thumb wheel, and then once you actually get above a certain speed, there's not a lot of there, and that's something that is not usually present in a properly configured VESC-based ESC, and it is something that happens with certain production boards where things are just not configurable. You get a good amount of punch right off the line, but that punch kind of dries up near the top end. So if you are actually interested in an electric skateboard and you haven't gotten one before and you don't want to spend a ton of money on a custom or a boutique board, then the Hurricane is a pretty good option. The price is good, there's a lot of potential in it, and I think it is a decent value for what you're actually going to pay for it. There are some things that I would change, and in a future video, I am going to change those things on my particular Hurricane and describe what I do to a Hurricane to bring it to more of a level that I would be comfortable with using long term. Now for me, long term, that means 1, 2, 3+ years. I like to have a PEV that has the potential to last quite a long amount of time. So if you're getting into e-skate or you've been riding lower priced budget boards for a while and you want to move up a little bit without spending a lot of money, then the Hurricane is a decent thing to consider. It is far from perfect, but again, perfect is hard to come by. As always, I very much appreciate your viewership. If you haven't subscribed already, please do, especially if you're interested in that upcoming modification video for the Meepo Hurricane, where I crack it open, swap some parts out, and tune it to be a little bit more than it would be right out of the box. Take care of yourselves and don't fall.